Greetings, friends and future friends. Today's video is on the Korg Pa5x. Now, this is going to be a follow-up video to a video I did a little while ago on the Chord Sequencer. We'll call this Chord Sequencer 2. Now, because I had a lot of questions and comments, I want to see if I can answer some of those questions and some of those comments in this video. Now, keep in mind that this is for the Chord Sequencer for the firmware version 1.3. If you have a firmware version in your Pa5x prior to 1.3, you're not going to have some of the functions that are in the new Chord Sequencer. And it's pretty cool stuff. So, let me show you some of those things. Okay, I've got Chain of Fools version 1 all loaded up in player 1 on the Korg Pa5x. And let's get into the Chord Sequencer. This is part 2, so I want to show you a couple of things that I didn't show you in the previous video. Some things that I've learned along the way. So we'll go to Chord Sequence, and you can see I have a chord sequence all loaded up in the player. And if we played it, it would play. Now, to erase that sequence, not from the library or anywhere you're saving it, but just lose it from the association to this style, you hit record, turn record on and off. Now that chord sequence is gone. So let's write a chord sequence from scratch. So we'll go up here, hit the pencil and the square, and we're going to add a chord sequence. Let's insert a measure first, then add a sequence. We got C, and let's bring that up to measure 1. Okay, and if we play it, you can see that it doesn't loop. But we wrote a sequence without touching the keyboard. So what I have done, and this is a really cool thing, is I've gone over here, and like I said in previous videos, if you look at the way the Korg takes its information, presets, styles, and whatever, it goes from the numbers into the letters. So if you can see start 1 1 1, start 1 1 1, 1 2 3 test, and going on. So what I've done is created a chord sequence called 1 1 1 start 3 4 and 1 1 1 start 4 4. And what that's doing is saving a chord sequence that we can bring right in. Now, let's go back. What you have to look at is the important thing is right there. One thing you have to look at is that's 4/4 timing. In this keyboard, I don't know if there's 7/8 or anything else, but I definitely know, because I use it when I'm recording, is you have 4/4 timing and you have 3/4 timing. So you have 1 2 3 1 2 3 and 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. So I know that I want to bring a new sequence in here. I go start 1 1 1 start 4 4. Boom. Hit that, escape, bring it over here, and now I've got a chord sequence in that chord sequencer. And if we look at it, it's E minor. If we play it, so what we've just done is brought in a sequence and it loops perfectly. Now what we can do is we can edit that. So let's go add a chord and add a chord. And I brought 2 add chords in there. And then we're going to do this chord here. We're going to bring that up. And I'm going to make that measure 3. Okay. And then I'm going to bring, actually let's make that, yeah, we'll make that measure 3. Okay. And then let's make this measure 4, okay. And you can see that it just got it back in line. 3 is now above the 4. We'll make this a B. We'll make this an A. And make these minors. And now you can see that we just created a sequence up there. And if we play it, And you can see that that chord sequence now loops. And now we can do anything we want. We can add more measures. We can go over here and change it to an 8-measure chord sequence. Whatever we want to do, we can do with just editing here. Now, a couple of things I want to clarify here with editing. Now, if we go down and when we're editing the A, where we can see we're actually editing the 4th measure. So if we play this again, get it repeating so it goes back. Now, when you're editing, you want to make sure where you're located. So if I'm on the B chord, I'm on the A chord, the A minor, you can see it shows up on the screen. This is where you're going to, if I want to insert a measure, you're going to see that, boom. Now that A minor is actually on the 5th measure. So what I want to do is bring that back down to the 4th. Okay. And now we have 5 measures. Hey, I only want 4. I could actually go back to here. Go 4. Okay. It says, hey, events starting from measure 5 will be deleted. Are you sure? Yes. And now we're back to a 4-measure system. The takeaway from here is when you say cut measure, now I'm on that A, it's going to cut that 4th measure. If I say delete chord, so if I say delete chord, it's going to delete the A minor, but it's going to keep the 4th measure. So if I go like that, the A minor's gone, but the measure's still there. Now if I go to where the B is, and I say cut measure, now you're going to see that the B minor is gone, but also the 3rd measure's gone, and now the 4th measure becomes the 3rd measure. So the thing to take away from that is when you cut a measure, you're cutting the measure wherever you're at. If I'm on this C, okay, now here's something that I made a mistake, but I want to show you something with this mistake that I just made. So I just added a chord, and you can see it's on the 4th measure, but the 4th measure isn't showing. So if we insert a measure, the 4th measure, now this C actually went to the 5th measure, but we bring that back down to the 4. Now we have that C back on the 4th measure. So again, the takeaway is you cut a measure, you cut the chord and the measure. If you cut the chord, say delete chord, it's only deleting the chord and it's leaving the measure by itself. Okay, another thing I want to show you is that each beat can actually contain a chord change. So now we have an E minor, first 2 measures, a B minor. Let's see how that sounds. So that shows you that you can actually create chord changes on each beat. Now this style is moving pretty quick, so you can't really hear the changes. I can hear them in the studio. Okay, I brought my chord sequence 1-1-1 start 4-4, a sequence I created, brought it in, and you can see that there's 4 measures of E minor. And if we play it, we can see that it's 4 measures of E minor. And it'll just repeat. So let's add a chord, and let's make this another E minor. And let's change its position to 3rd measure. And now you can see we have measure 1 and 2 are playing the E minor, and of course we have E minor on measure 3 and 4. So, and it would play E minor the whole way through. So I showed you the position of chord, the extension. Now I want to show you the slash chord notes. Let's go there. And let's set this to A. Now, one thing I want to bring to your attention is when you're setting this slash chord note, so say I'm going to set it to A, you can now see that up here on the third measure, the E minor has a /A next to it. Now, if I want to get rid of that, you can see that you can't really delete it or anything like that. It just, you know, whatever happens. What you have to do is go back to the original note. If I go back to E, you'll see E sharp, then boom, it disappears. Now, if I go to E flat, you're going to see it show back up. And if I go to E, it disappears. And if I go to E sharp, it appears. So if you're in this mode, in this screen, and you're messing around and you can't get rid of that note, you have to go back to the original note, E minor. Now, if that was an A minor, then you would be looking at the A. But let's go, it's an E minor. Let's bring up the fourth, bring up an A. And now I'm going to play this for you. And you're going to hear when it hits the third measure, the bass line is going to jump to A. Now that's really great if you want to change that song up a little bit. Say you don't want to go in and spend all day rewriting a bass line to a different version, but you like the bass line, and what you're going to do is want to change the notes, you can add that /chord note and it's going to bring it up. Now we can actually bring it up to different notes, but one thing I will tell you right off the bat about that is you have to be aware of your bass line, because if you change it to too many weird notes, it's not going to follow. If you're changing it to too high of a note or too low of a note, it's going to want to follow that chord wherever the limitations of that bass line are. So if you have a bass line that's got a large span in its scale, when you change this /chord, it might not change the whole bass line. But in this style, it works great. I mean, if I take it and get rid of it again, go back to the C and play it. But then if I bring that A back up again, to add that /chord note is really great, because what it does is it adds a little more texture to your style or to your chord sequence. Okay, I wanted to show you one more thing in this chord sequencer that's very important. Again, it's back now. I brought up 3/4 flamingo, and you can see that now this is in 3/4 timing. So let's go to the chord sequencer, and you can see I actually have a chord sequence already associated with that style. So we're going to hit record, turn record on and off. We've not gotten rid of that. We'll go up here to edit, hit edit. Now I see that this is 3/4. So I need to understand that my chord sequence has to be 3/4. So I did that already. I actually created a 1-1-1 start 3/4, bring it in, go okay, bring it in, and there is my 4 measure 3/4 chord sequence. And if we play it, and it's playing, you can now see where it says E minor 2 3 2 2 3 3 2 3 4 2 3. Real clear behind the 4 you see 3 slashes because it's 3/4 timing. And now you have to think about that, because we have 4 measures but we have 3 beats. So again, you have to use a little bit of your musician background. And let's go to, let's add a chord, and let's make this a F sharp, and add another chord and make this a G. And we'll now make this thing come in on the 3rd measure. And I'm going to have the G come in on the 4th measure. And let's see what that sounds like. Again, I brought in my, I'll do this again, brought in my start 3/4. There's my chord sequence, went up here right, then add a chord, go over here. I'm going to make this on measure 3, and I'm going to make this one on measure 4, then change this to F sharp, and this to G, and there's our chord sequence. And that's something you need to take in consideration when writing your chord sequence. Is it in 4/4 timing or is it in 3/4 timing? What I've done, again, this is the trick that I think that's really going to help you. You don't have to label it like this, but keep in mind that everything on this chord goes by numbers and letters. So 1, 1, 1, start 3, 4, I know is always going to be at the top of the list. I don't have to look for it. I can go boom right there. And I have start 4, 4. And start 4, 4 is 4 measures in 4/4 timing. Bring those things right in, like I brought this in, and then now you can add and subtract chords. You can put in your slash chord notes, and your limitations are the limitations of your imagination. You can write songs like this all day long. Well, I hope this video answered some of your questions and comments and gave you a little bit better insight on the new chord sequencer in the firmware version 1.3 upgrade. It's a very powerful tool. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. You'll help us grow the channel. That way we can bring you more cool stuff. So take care, my friends, and thanks for watching.